My best friend was convinced she was in love with her mom's much older boyfriend and secretly started dating him. But then she got pregnant by him, so we had no choice but to expose his disgusting secret and ruin him forever. In 11th grade, my best friend started coming to school with clothes from Urban Outfitters and Brandy Melville. These were brands neither me, her, or any other girl in our friend group could afford. So we immediately hounded her for answers. "Oh, my mom got a new boyfriend and he's trying to win me over," she told us. I laughed, because I myself knew what that felt like. Milk him dry. One of our other friends laughed. We never brought it up again, until a week later when she came into school with a suspiciously bright smile on her face. It's not like Jane was necessarily a negative person, but she was definitely very introverted. I honestly thought she had gotten a boyfriend. Even her skin was clearer, but I didn't want to embarrass her in front of the group. So after school, I lightheartedly asked if she was seeing someone. Her face automatically turned super red. "Please don't ask me that again," she said. Her tone was warning, cold, very unlike Jane. Over the next few days, I started to pay very close attention to her. And one day she had a Pandora charm bracelet, filled with the charms, badly hidden under her sleeve. Well, her family's income was around the same as mine, so it didn't make any sense. And a lot of our friends were getting into shoplifting, so I figured she was just doing the same. "So you're a little kleptomaniac now, huh?" I asked her one day while laughing. Her face went red like before, but instead of embarrassment, it was anger. "I told you to stop saying stuff like that to me," she said before getting up and walking away. When I got home, I noticed I had lost a follower on Instagram, and my instincts told me to check if it was Jane, and it was. And remember how I said me and Jane were best friends? Well, we were. We've worn each other's undies and borrowed each other's socks. One time when she came on holiday with my family, there was only one bathroom, so I showered while she brushed her teeth, and neither of us even felt uncomfortable. She was practically like my sister, so unfollowing me was a very big red flag, and it was clear she wasn't going to tell me the truth. So instead of being a normal, patient friend, I showed up to her house with a plate of $3 cookies wrapped in tinfoil and pretended like I had made them for her. A man I didn't recognize opened the door. He was in his boxers and nothing else. He didn't even look uncomfortable when he saw me. Behind him was Jane in a slinky bathrobe barely covering her body and messy makeup. My heart went cold, and she instantly ran into the bathroom. "Hey!" I yelled over enthusiastically, trying to compensate for the tension that had formed. "Just wanted to drop these off. Hope y'all enjoy." I then hopped in my car and drove as fast as I could around the corner. My best friend was being groomed. What are you even supposed to do in these situations? I could go to the police, but without Jane confessing, there would be no point. So I called our friend Emily. She was the only one I could trust who would see the situation as actually dangerous, instead of some juicy gossip. Plus, she was the type of friend who somehow always knew what to do. And this time was no different. She said we need to convince Jane that what is going on is very wrong, and she is being groomed. Well, at the end of the month, Emily was due to present a project in class about the dangers of the online world. She told me to trust her, and try to win Jane's trust back in the meantime. So I did. The next day at school, Jane was super tense, and I could tell she was waiting to see if I'd bring it up. After she realized I wasn't, she acted warm to me. It was like old times. From there, I noticed that she stopped trying to hide her ever-growing collection of bougie jewelry, that she started wearing a locket every day that had a photo inside. It felt like Emily's presentation couldn't have come soon enough. She started off with cyberbullying and sharing passwords, so I had no idea where it was going, until she got to online grooming. She dedicated an entire slide to older people finding younger people, sending them money, and pretending like they loved them in order to receive favors. It was perfect because not only did the entire class gasp in disgust, but the teacher even chimed in to say how unacceptable this behavior was. The entire time, I watched Jane like a hawk. I saw her slowly become more uncomfortable, bouncing her leg up and down super fast and biting all her fingernails off. I knew things were getting really good when she asked to go to the bathroom and ran off crying, because I knew it was for her own good. But as soon as lunch started, I got the text. Jane was spamming me asking me to meet her in the bathroom. I found her clutching her legs to her stomach in the cubicle. Her face was completely red and she couldn't even breathe. "Michaela, I stroked her hair waiting for her to finally blurt it out. "I'm pregnant." My jaw dropped. I pulled away from her slightly to see if she was joking. I couldn't even say the word stepdad, but she nodded anyway. I hugged her super tight and just reminded her that we were in this together. This made her loosen up a little. We stayed like that for what felt like forever, until her breathing finally steadied. I pulled some rough paper towels from the dispenser and helped her clean her face. The bell for 5th period rang, but neither of us moved. "How far along are you?" I asked gently, trying to keep my voice calm even though my heart was racing. 8 weeks, I think," she whispered, staring at the grimy bathroom floor. "I took 3 tests. They were all positive." "Does he know?" I asked, already dreading the answer. Jane nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "He said it's my fault, that I trapped him." She laughed bitterly, like I wanted this. I took a deep breath. "Jane, we need to tell someone, a counselor or something." To my surprise, she nodded. "I know. I can't do this anymore, Michaela. Last night she pulled up her sleeve, revealing a dark bruise circling her wrist. He got mad when I said I wanted to keep it. My blood boiled, but I kept my face neutral. "Let's go to Ms. Reyes," I suggested, referring to the school counselor everyone liked. "Right now." Jane hesitated, then nodded. We walked to the counselor's office together, my arm around her shoulders. Ms. Reyes took one look at Jane's tear-stained face and immediately ushered us into her office, closing the door behind us. The counselor, Ms. Reyes, watched us with a gentle expression. "You're doing the right thing," I whispered to Jane. "I promise." Ms. Reyes cleared her throat. "Jane, I need to ask, are you in immediate danger? Should we contact the authorities?" Jane's body went rigid against mine. "No police," she said firmly. "Please, he'll know it was me who told." Ms. Reyes and I exchanged glances. I could see she was legally obligated to report certain things, but the fear in Jane's eyes was unmistakable. "The shelter Emily found doesn't require police involvement right away," I explained quickly. "They can help her figure out next steps safely." Ms. Reyes nodded slowly. "I can drive you both there after school. In the the meantime, Jane, you can stay here in my office. Jane clutched my hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. Don't leave me alone. I'll stay, I promised, looking at Ms. Reyes, who nodded her permission. I'll write you both excused absences for the day, she said, stepping out to give us privacy. Once alone, Jane collapsed into tears again. He's going to be so angry, Michaela. You don't understand what he's like when he's angry. The bruise around her eye had faded to a sickly yellow green, hidden beneath a layer of concealer that was now streaking down her face with her tears. I wondered what other marks were hidden beneath her clothes. What happened to the baby, Jane? I asked gently. She stared at the floor, her shoulders hunched forward. I told him I was pregnant. He said I was trying to trap him. Her voice became hollow, barely above a whisper. He took me to some clinic 2 towns over, paid cash, used fake names, said if I ever told anyone he'd tell my mom I was a war. My blood boiled, but I kept my face neutral, swallowing the rage that threatened to spill out. Did you want to keep it? Jane shrugged helplessly. I don't know. I didn't get to decide anything. And the black eye? I threw up in his car afterward. He said I did it on purpose. We sat in silence for a while, Jane's head on my shoulder, her breathing gradually steadying. I texted Emily that we were in the counselor's office and about the plan to go to the shelter after school. Emily texted back immediately. I'm coming too. Don't leave without me. Around lunchtime, Ms. Reyes brought us sandwiches from the cafeteria. Jane barely touched hers, picking at the crust before setting it aside. The sandwich sat there on the desk, just a single bite taken out of it. I remembered how Jane used to eat everything in sight. She'd always finish my leftovers and joke about having a bottomless pit for a stomach. Now she looked like she'd lost at least 15 pounds since the beginning of the school year. What if my mom reports me missing? She asked suddenly. The shelter will help with that, I assured her, though I wasn't entirely sure how it worked. They deal with situations like this all the time. Jane nodded, but I could see she was spiraling through worst-case scenarios in her head. She kept checking her phone, which buzzed occasionally with texts she wouldn't let me see. Is that him? I asked after the third notification made her flinch. Jane nodded, her fingers trembling as she silenced her phone. He thinks I'm at school. If I don't answer soon, he might show up here. My stomach dropped like a stone. Then let's leave now. We don't have to wait until after school. I texted Emily, who replied she'd meet us at the counselor's car in 5 minutes. Ms. Reyes agreed to take us immediately when I explained our concerns. As we walked through the empty hallways toward the staff parking lot, Jane suddenly stopped, her hand flying to her neck. My locket, she whispered, touching her bare neck. I left it in my locker. I need to get it. Jane, we should go now. I need it, she insisted, her eyes wild with panic. Please, Michaela. It'll only take a second. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We detoured to her locker, where Jane quickly spun the combination and retrieved the gold locket. Instead of putting it on, she dropped it into an empty soda can from a nearby trash bin. I don't want it anymore, she said quietly, but I don't want him to have it either. We met Emily and Ms. Reyes at the car. The drive to the shelter took about 20 minutes, during which Jane grew increasingly anxious, picking at her cuticles until one started bleeding. I handed her a tissue from my backpack, and she wrapped it around her finger without even looking at it. Through the car window, I watched the neighborhoods change, from our familiar suburb to an area with more apartment buildings and small businesses. Ms. Reyes drove carefully, checking her rearview mirror often to make sure we weren't being followed. The women's shelter was a nondescript building with security cameras and a buzzer system at the entrance. Nothing on the outside indicated what it was. It looked like any other office building, with plain beige walls and a small parking lot. Ms. Reyes spoke into the intercom, and we were buzzed in. Inside, a woman named Tara greeted us. She had kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that somehow put me at ease. She took Jane to a private room to talk, while Emily, Ms. Reyes, and I waited in a small lounge area with worn but clean furniture. Will she be safe here? I asked Ms. Reyes, twisting the hem of my shirt between my fingers. Yes, she assured me. This place has excellent security protocols. Emily pulled out her notebook, flipping to a page filled with her neat handwriting. I brought all my documentation, everything I've collected about Kevin, dates, the Instagram posts, everything. Ms. Reyes looked impressed. That will be very helpful, Emily. I glanced around the waiting room, taking in the posters about domestic violence and safety planning. There were pamphlets in multiple languages stacked on a small table, and a children's play area in one corner with worn but clean toys. A bulletin board on one wall had success stories pinned to it, anonymous notes from women who had rebuilt their lives after leaving abusive situations. I wondered if Jane would someday write her own note for that board. After about an hour, Tara came back without Jane. She's getting settled in a room, she explained. She's agreed to stay with us for now. Can we visit her? I asked, already missing my friend. Not for the first 72 hours, Tara said gently. It's protocol for high-risk situations. She needs time to decompress without outside influence. My heart sank, but I understood. Can she at least text us? She can use our shelter phone to call you at designated times, Tara explained. No personal devices allowed initially. It's for everyone's safety. Kevin likely has tracking software on her phone. We left our contact information and reluctantly prepared to leave. Before we did, Tara allowed us a quick goodbye. Jane was sitting on a twin bed in a small but clean room, looking both terrified and relieved. The room was simple, just the bed, a small dresser, and a desk with a chair. A window looked out onto a small courtyard, but the blinds were partially drawn for privacy. I'm so proud of you, I told her, hugging her tight. Thank you for not giving up on me, she whispered, her breath warm against my ear. The drive back to school was quiet. Ms. Reyes dropped Emily and me off with excused absence notes for our missed classes. What happens now? Emily asked as we walked to our lockers. We wait, I guess, I said, feeling strangely hollow. After weeks of worrying and planning, Jane was finally somewhere safe, but the situation was far from resolved. That evening, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was Jane calling from the shelter phone. How are you? I asked, curling up on my bed. Scared, she admitted, but they're really nice here. There's another girl my age too. Has your mom called you? Jane sighed. Yeah, I told her I'm staying with you for a few days. She bought it. She's working doubles this week anyway. And him? He's called like 20 times, Jane said, her voice shaking. "The shelter people say I shouldn't answer. They're helping me figure out what to do next. They found out he had installed tracking apps on my phone. That's how he always knew where I was." After we hung up, I tried to focus on homework but couldn't concentrate. My math textbook sat open on my desk, but the equations blurred together as my mind kept drifting back to Jane. I wondered what she was doing right now, if she was scared in that strange place, if she was regretting her decision to leave. I checked my phone every few minutes, even though I knew she wouldn't be calling again tonight. Around 10 p.m., my phone rang again. Jane's mom. "Michaela, is Jane really staying with you?" Mrs. Walker asked, her voice tight with suspicion. My heart raced. "Yes, Mrs. Walker. We're working on a big project together." The lie tasted bitter in my mouth. "That's funny, because Kevin just drove by your house and said all the lights were off except in what must be your parents' room." Ice flooded my veins. He had driven by my house, looking for Jane? "We're in the basement," I improvised. "Better Wi-Fi down there." Mrs. Walker didn't sound convinced, but said she'd call back tomorrow. After hanging up, I immediately called the shelter and asked them to warn Jane. The woman who answered took my message seriously, promising to let Jane know right away. I then checked all the locks on our doors and windows, drawing the curtains tight. The idea of Kevin driving by my house, watching, made my skin crawl. I couldn't sleep that night, jumping at every creak and sound outside my window. I kept imagining his black car parked across the street, his eyes watching my house. The next day at school, rumors were already circulating about Jane's absence and my disappearance with her the day before. I heard whispers as I walked down the hallway. Pregnant, ran away, secret boyfriend. I ignored the whispers and met Emily at lunch. "Kevin drove by my house last night looking for Jane," I told her in a low voice. Emily's eyes widened. "That's creepy. Do you think he suspects something?" "Definitely. And he's got Jane's mom convinced something's up too." We spent lunch brainstorming what to do next. Emily had been researching similar cases and found that without Jane making an official statement to police, there wasn't much legal action that could be taken against Kevin. "The shelter will help her with restraining order options," Emily said, "but she has to be willing to come forward." After school, I got another call from Jane. She sounded more centered than the day before. "The counselor here is amazing," she said. "She's helping me see how messed up everything was with Kevin, how he manipulated me from the beginning." "That's great, Jane. But I'm not ready to go to the police," she continued. "Not yet. I need to figure some things out first." I understood her hesitation, but part of me worried about how long she could hide at the shelter. "Your mom called me last night. Kevin is looking for you." Jane was quiet for a moment. "I know. The shelter said he's called their main line a few times. They don't confirm or deny if anyone's staying there, but it's only a matter of time before he figures it out." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Kevin driving by my house, watching, waiting. I double-checked all the locks before bed and jumped at every creak and groan of our old house settling. My bedroom was on the second floor, but I still kept my curtains tightly closed, paranoid about someone watching from outside. I tried to distract myself with homework and Netflix, but my mind kept racing with worst-case scenarios. The next morning, I had a text from an unknown number. "I know what you did. Stay out of things that don't concern you." My hands shook as I read it. The message was vague enough that it could have been about anything, but I knew exactly who it was from and what it meant. I showed Emily as soon as I got to school. "It has to be Kevin," she said, adding the text to her documentation. "Should we tell someone?" I hesitated. "Let's wait and see if he does anything else. I don't want to make things worse for Jane." But by lunchtime, things had escalated. Jane's mother showed up at school, demanding to speak with me. The office called me down, and I found Mrs. Walker looking haggard and angry, dark circles under her eyes. Her nurse's scrubs were wrinkled, like she'd come straight from an overnight shift. "Where is my daughter?" she demanded as soon as she saw me. "Mrs. Walker, don't lie to me," she snapped. "Kevin told me everything, about how you've been filling Jane's head with lies, trying to turn her against us." My mouth fell open. "What?" "He showed me the messages," she continued. "Jane told him how you've been jealous of their relationship, how you've been making up stories about him." My mind raced. What messages? Jane would never say those things. Then it hit me. Kevin must have access to Jane's accounts. The shelter had found tracking apps on her phone. What else might he have installed? "Mrs. Walker, that's not true," I said carefully. "Kevin is not who you think he is." Her eyes narrowed. "Kevin has been nothing but supportive of our family. He's the only father figure Jane has ever known." I bit back what I really wanted to say. "Have you talked to Jane yourself? Not through Kevin, but directly?" A flicker of doubt crossed her face. "She texted me she's fine and needs space." "From her own phone?" Mrs. Walker hesitated. "Well, from her number." I took a deep breath. "Mrs. Walker, I think you should try to talk to Jane directly. That's all I'm saying." She left looking troubled, which I counted as a small victory. I immediately called the shelter to warn them about Kevin's escalation and his apparent access to Jane's accounts. That afternoon, Emily and I went to the local police station to ask hypothetically what could be done in a situation like Jane's. The station was small, with fluorescent lighting and the smell of coffee permeating everything. The officer at the front desk initially seemed bored, but perked up when we mentioned our hypothetical situation involved a minor. The officer we spoke with, a woman named Detective Morales, listened carefully. She had kind eyes but a serious expression, taking notes as we explained the situation without using names. "Without the victim coming forward, our hands are tied," she explained. "But if you have evidence of a crime, we can investigate." Emily mentioned the Instagram posts and the threatening text I'd received. Detective Morales gave us her card. "If your friend decides to come forward, or if you feel you're in danger, call me directly." A week passed. Jane called daily from the shelter, sounding stronger each time. She was working with counselors and legal advocates, preparing for whatever came next. Her mother had finally reached her directly and was beginning to piece together the truth, though Jane hadn't told her everything yet. I kept going to school, trying to focus on classes and homework, but my mind was constantly on Jane and whether she was safe. Then one morning, I arrived at school to find Kevin waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his expensive black car. My stomach dropped, but I kept walking, head down, hoping he wouldn't recognize me. I considered turning around, but there were other students around, and I thought I'd be safer in a crowd. "Michaela, right?" he called out, his voice friendly. "Jane's friend?" I stopped, heart pounding. Up close, I could see what Jane might have found attractive. He was handsome in a polished way, with an easy smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. He wore an expensive-looking watch and designer clothes, looking completely out of place in our school parking lot. Jane's been going through a tough time, he said conversationally, as if we were old acquaintances. Her mother and I are really worried about her. I haven't seen her, I lied, gripping my backpack strap so tightly my fingers hurt. That's strange, because her mother said she was staying with you. His smile remained fixed, but his eyes hardened. You wouldn't lie to a concerned parent, would you? I have to get to class, I said, trying to move past him. He stepped into my path, his cologne overwhelming me. I know you think you're helping her, but you're not. Jane has issues, delusions. She's made accusations before. My skin crawled. I really have to go. Just tell her to call me, he said, finally stepping aside. Tell her I forgive her. We can work this out. I practically ran into the building, texting Emily as I went. She met me by my locker, face pale. He was waiting for you? She whispered. That's intimidation. We should call that detective. I nodded, still shaking. He's trying to gaslight me, make me think Jane is the problem. During lunch, we called Detective Morales and reported the encounter. She took it seriously, but reminded us that without Jane filing a report, there wasn't much they could do about Kevin specifically. But I can speak with him about harassment if he approaches you again at school, she offered. That's a separate issue. After school, I called Jane and told her about the encounter. He's desperate, she said, her voice stronger than I'd heard in weeks. The shelter people say that's actually a good sign. It means he's losing control. Your mom came to school last week, I told her. I think she's starting to question things. Jane was quiet for a moment. I'm going to tell her everything. The shelter has offered to mediate a conversation. They think she'll believe me if she hears it directly. Are you sure you're ready? No, Jane admitted, but I can't hide forever. 2 days later, Jane called me with news. My mom came to the shelter. We talked for hours. Her voice broke. She believes me, Michaela. She kicked him out of the house. Relief washed over me. That's amazing, Jane. She's filing for a restraining order, Jane continued. And I decided to make a statement to the police. Not a full report yet, but enough to start a file. I felt like I could breathe properly for the first time in weeks. I'm so proud of you. I'm coming back to school next week, she added. Mom's looking into transferring me to Westlake for a fresh start, but that might take time. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Emily and I cleaned out Jane's locker, collecting her books and personal items. We carefully packed everything into a box. Her textbooks, some spare clothes from gym class, a few photos taped to the inside of her locker door. The counselor arranged for Jane to have modified assignments to catch up on missed work. I even went shopping with my mom to buy Jane a welcome back gift, a simple silver bracelet to replace the charm bracelet she'd abandoned. It wasn't expensive, just a thin silver band with a small heart charm, but I hoped it would symbolize a fresh start. The morning Jane was set to return, I waited anxiously in the parking lot. When her mom's car pulled up, I rushed over. Jane stepped out looking different. Her hair was cut shorter, and she wore a simple t-shirt and jeans instead of the flashy clothes Kevin had bought her. The locket and charm bracelet were gone. She hugged me tight. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. The day wasn't easy. People stared and whispered. A few insensitive classmates asked where she'd been, if the rumors about her being pregnant were true. Emily and I flanked her like bodyguards, shutting down questions and creating a buffer between Jane and the rest of the school. At lunch, Jane seemed overwhelmed by the cafeteria noise, so we ate outside instead. The spring air was warm, and we found a quiet spot under a tree away from the main lunch area. Kevin keeps texting my mom, she said quietly. The number is blocked, but he creates new ones. The police said it's not enough to violate the temporary restraining order since he's not directly contacting me, and the texts aren't explicitly threatening. Has he tried to contact you? Emily asked. Jane shook her head. Not directly, but I'm scared to go home sometimes. What if he's waiting? Your mom changed the locks, right? I asked. Yeah, and we got a security camera for the front door, Jane confirmed. But still, I understood her fear. I'd been jumping at shadows myself since Kevin approached me in the parking lot. That afternoon, as we walked to the parking lot after school, Jane suddenly froze. That's his car, she whispered, pointing to a black sedan idling near the exit. I immediately pulled her back toward the building. Let's go to the office. We'll call your mom and the police. We reported the sighting to the school security officer, who went to check it out, but the car was already gone. Jane was shaking so badly that the nurse suggested she lie down until her mother could pick her up. He's not going to stop, Jane said, tears streaming down her face. He'll keep finding ways to get to me. I held her hand tightly. We won't let him. Jane's mother arrived looking frantic. She hugged Jane fiercely before turning to me. Thank you for watching out for her, Michaela. Always, I promised. That night, I got a call from Jane around midnight. He was outside our house, she whispered, just sitting in his car, watching. Mom called the police, but he left before they arrived. Did they take a report? Yes, but they said it's still not technically violating the restraining order since he stayed on public property and didn't approach us or communicate directly. Her voice cracked. I'm so tired, Michaela. I just want this to be over. The next day, Jane didn't come to school. Her mother called her in sick, but when I texted, Jane admitted they were staying at a hotel because they didn't feel safe at home. Emily and I met at lunch to brainstorm. The shelter said they could help her transfer schools quickly. Emily reminded me, maybe that's the best option now. But that means he wins, I argued. Jane has to leave her home, her school, her friends, while he just gets away with everything. Emily looked troubled. I know it's not fair, but Jane's safety is what matters most right now. I couldn't argue with that. After school, I drove to the hotel where Jane and her mom were staying. It was a budget place just off the highway, with exterior room doors and a small parking lot. Jane looked exhausted, but managed a small smile when she saw me. Mom's talking to a lawyer about expediting the permanent restraining order, she explained as we sat on the hotel bed, and we're seriously considering the school transfer. I'll miss you, I said, but I understand. Jane nodded. The shelter found a program that helps people like me start over. New school, counseling, support groups, everything. When would you go? As soon as next week, she said. Mom's job has a branch office in that district, so she can transfer too. I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Jane would be safer away from here, away from Kevin, but I couldn't help feeling like we were being separated just when our friendship had deepened through this crisis. I'll still see you, Jane promised, reading my expression, just not every day at school. 2 days later, Jane returned to school to clean out her locker and say goodbye to a few teachers. Emily and I walked with her, forming a protective barrier. The hallways felt charged with tension, as if everyone somehow knew this was Jane's last day. As we left the building, Jane stopped suddenly. "I want to get coffee," she announced. "The three of us. One last normal thing before everything changes." We drove to the small coffee shop near school, ordered our drinks, and found a quiet corner table. For a brief moment, it felt like old times, just three friends hanging out, laughing about nothing important. The coffee shop was cozy, with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. The familiar smell of coffee and pastries surrounded us, and for a moment, we could pretend everything was normal. "I'm going to miss this," Jane said softly. "It's not forever," Emily reminded her. "Just until things settle down." Jane nodded, but her eyes were sad. "I keep thinking about how different everything would be if I'd never fallen for his manipulation." "It wasn't your fault," I said firmly. "He knew exactly what he was doing." Jane twisted her new silver bracelet, the one I'd given her to replace the charm bracelet. "The counselor at the shelter said predators like Kevin target girls who are vulnerable. My mom working all the time, us struggling financially. I was the perfect victim. But you got away," Emily pointed out. "That's what matters." Jane smiled slightly. "Yeah, thanks to you guys." As we left the coffee shop, Jane's phone buzzed with a text from her mom saying she was waiting in the parking lot. We walked her to the car, hugging tightly before she got in. "I'll text you my new number once we're settled," Jane promised. I watched her mom's car drive away, feeling a strange mix of accomplishment and loss. We'd saved Jane from Kevin, but at such a cost. A week passed with no word from Jane. I tried not to worry, knowing she was probably busy with the move and starting at her new school. Emily and I fell back into our regular routines, though something felt missing without Jane. The cafeteria table seemed emptier, our text group chat quieter. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message from her new number. Then, 10 days after she left, I got a text from an unknown number. "It's me. I'm safe." I told the truth. Relief flooded through me. I called the number immediately, and Jane answered. "Hey," she said, sounding more like her old self than she had in months. "How are you? How's the new school?" "It's good," she said. "Different, but good. Mom and I have an apartment in a secure building. I'm seeing a counselor twice a week. Have you heard anything about him?" Jane was quiet for a moment. "Mom filed for full custody of me and banned him from our property. Turns out he was living with us illegally. His name wasn't on any paperwork, and he lied about everything. His job, his background, even his age." "Are you serious?" I asked, my jaw dropping. "Yeah, the police are investigating him now for some other things they found. I don't know all the details." We talked for almost an hour, catching up on everything. Jane sounded stronger, more confident. She'd joined an art club at her new school and was making friends slowly. Her voice had a lightness to it that I hadn't heard in months, maybe even years. It was like she was finally able to be a normal teenager again, without the weight of Kevin's manipulation crushing her. 2 weeks later, Emily and I drove to Jane's new town to meet her for coffee. It was about an hour away, in a suburb similar to ours, but with newer buildings and wider streets. Jane was waiting for us at a small cafe, waving excitedly when she saw us. The difference in her was striking. Her eyes were clear and bright, her smile genuine. The expensive clothes and jewelry were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater that actually looked comfortable. She looked healthy again, her face had filled out, and her skin had a natural glow. "I have news," she said after we ordered our drinks. "Kevin's been arrested." Emily and I exchanged shocked glances. "For what?" I asked. "Apparently I wasn't the first," Jane said quietly. "When I finally made my full statement to the police, they connected him to 2 other cases in different counties. Girls like me." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm so sorry, Jane." She squeezed back. "Don't be. It means he can't hurt anyone else now." As we sipped our coffee, Jane told us about her new life, her classes, her therapist, the support group she joined for survivors of grooming and exploitation. She was healing, one day at a time. Her eyes lit up as she talked about her art projects and the new friends she was making. It was like watching a flower that had been kept in the dark finally getting sunlight. "What about the locket?" Emily asked. "The one you used to wear every day?" Jane smiled. "I left it behind, along with everything else he gave me." She touched the simple silver bracelet on her wrist, the one I'd given her. "This is the only jewelry I need now." When it was time to leave, we hugged tightly in the parking lot, promising to meet again soon. Jane looked so different from the scared, broken girl we'd helped escape just weeks ago. She stood taller, smiled easier, laughed more freely. The shadows under her eyes were gone, replaced by a quiet confidence. As Emily and I drove home, I thought about how far Jane had come, from the girl trembling in a bathroom stall to the stronger, more self-aware young woman we'd just had coffee with. "We did good," Emily said, as if reading my thoughts. "Yeah," I agreed. "We did." That night I got one more text from Jane. "Thank you for not giving up on me when I gave up on myself. Love you both." I smiled, typing back. "Always. That's what real friends do."